I'm Ian Anderson from the Designers Republic. I support Sheffield Wednesday FC, Wednesday till I die. I got into football. I used to live in London with my parents, obviously, and first match I went to see was a Fulham game. My dad and all his mates from work went to watch Fulham, and it was the season, so it had been the 66-67 season, in the heady days after England won the World Cup for the first time. So I went to see Fulham, and then basically I came to Sheffield to go to university, late 70s, early 80s, when nobody really went to football unless you were really keen or fancied a scrap. I got into music, girls, all the other stuff, going to clubs. And then my parents moved up here. My mum wanted my dad out of the house so she could do some cleaning or something. So I took him to see a Wednesday game, and it happened to be it was the last game of the season. And it just happened to be that Wednesday we were at home. I kind of went there, and I kind of got the sort of smell of all the burgers and the hot dogs and the onions, and that kind of all came flooding back. And I thought, what have I been missing? And then it was strange, as I came out of the ground, I saw like quite a few of my mates who apparently all kind of were going to Wednesday every home game, season ticket holders, but no one really mentioned it because no one really talked about football unless you had to at the time. And I kind of stopped supporting Fulham just because they were third or fourth division by then, and with pre-internet, they never got reported on in the press or national press. So all you'd ever find out was the results. So it's difficult to follow them. So I just started going with my mates, and so that'd be about 30 years ago, watching Wednesday. And kind of once it gets in your blood, it stays there. So still at it now. I take my kids now, so yeah. I think design and music kind of go together naturally because they're both sort of the arts in some kind of way. So you're into music or into art or whatever, and it's culture. And I think that increasingly football has come back into being popular culture now. But I think that I think there's one of those things that people kind of forget, and that is that kind of designers or pretty much anybody, whatever you do, it isn't the only thing that you do. And we've all been brought up. So I was sort of brought up and went to school and went to football, before I even had I even knew what a designer was. So I think that we all have those kind of things, and I think another thing a designer needs to do, it needs to have, is a sense. How can I put it? I think a designer needs to have sort of a leaning towards obsession. So, and football is a great thing for obsessives. Whether you're looking at John Watson style, looking at the stats and the results and the league tables in the Sunday papers, or whether you're obsessive about going to games and kind of when your lucky pie foil and out which way you have to fold it, which pocket you have to put it in, or which sweet wrappers you have to kind of like do. There's sort of the lucky things that you do that are obviously key to your victory. So I think that there's a lot of things that make a good designer, which also would suggest that you'd be into something like football. But I think there's also the sense that most designers I know did certain things when they were kids, and that is I spent most of my time designing flags and designing football kits, and I wish I still had them, but I had box files and box files and box files of kits that I designed for various teams, all of which are probably better than the kits that each team has now, if you're watching. But that's what I did. It was flag or maps. So there's a lot about going to football that isn't actually anything to do with the sport. It's about the culture. It's about the religion of going to a game. It's about the belonging, and it's about sort of the colours, not the colours as in battle colours, but I'm always interested to see, you know, what kind of fancy away kit the away teams wearing and things like that. So, you know, so I spend far too much of my time on websites like Kit Classics. It's just kits and kits and kits, you know. And the great thing, not so much now, but the great thing about seeing teams from abroad was that they'd always have like a kind of kit design that you wouldn't see much in, you know, in this country. So I think that I don't know whether design and the sport of football is a necessarily not an obvious match, but I think everything that goes around it, I think is very much sort of, you know, design obsessive, football obsessive. Our flag's going to be based on the idea that it's for most football fans. Most of us support teams who aren't going to go up and hopefully aren't going to go down. And most of us support teams, most real football fans support teams in the Football League, you know, because it's where they come from, or for what of the reasons that I said, or, you know, lots of different reasons, but it's not because they're on TV every week. And for most football fans, there's not so much to look forward to. So this year, you know, I'm kind of, you know, just so happy that sort of Sheffield Wednesday have achieved mid-table mediocrity, you know, because it means we're not going to go down, so we don't have that. And if we put a good run together, we might scrape the playoffs, but we won't put a good run together, and therefore we won't trouble the playoffs. But you know, so quite often if you're realistic about it, there's not that much to look forward to. But everybody's got teams that you from somewhere between don't really like to absolutely hate, and sometimes it's better if there is no particular reason. It's just that's your choice. But anyway, so our flag is more about that whole thing that I always say that my second favourite team any one week is whoever's playing Sheffield United or Leeds United. So I think that, and quite often when Wednesday, you know, you're playing a team where you think, well, you're obviously going to get beat. Sometimes the first result you look at is whoever might have beaten Leeds United or Shit United or whoever. So I think that a lot of being a football fan, and a lot of one of the best things about supporting your team is hating the enemy, and that sense of, you know, we support. What's that saying? It's I support everything my enemy opposes, and I think that's a good thing in football. That actually, kind of, even if your team isn't doing so well, at least you can take solace that the team that you hate is doing even worse. So our flag's going to be more about that, and it's going to be more about the real joys of football, and the real joys is always the mishaps of others, the failings of your enemy rather than the success of yourself, taking pleasure in their failure.